Fit on the outside, broken on the inside. Let me open with something that might make a few people uncomfortable. Looking fit, looking lean, looking muscular does not automatically mean you're healthy. And just because you can burn off a bad diet today doesn't mean you won't pay for it later. That belief is one of the most dangerous traps in modern fitness culture. I recently received a comment from someone that went something like this: I run a lot of miles every week. I burn a lot of calories. I am lean. I am happy with my weight. So I don't really worry about what I eat. On the surface, that sounds reasonable. He looks good. He feels good. The scale looks good. End of story. Except it isn't. That logic works until it doesn't. Most people define health by what they see in the mirror: a flat stomach, visible abs, muscle tone, low body fat. That becomes the definition, but health is not the packaging. Health is what is happening inside your body, and more importantly, what is happening over time. And that is the part you do not see until years or decades later. When you're young, your body is incredibly forgiving. You can eat almost anything. You can eat a lot of it. You can eat sugar, junk food, and ultra processed food, and somehow you don't gain any weight. You might even look great. So you assume everything is fine. But just because you're not gaining weight does not mean damage is not happening. It just means the damage has not surfaced yet. Diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and cancer do not show up overnight. They do not develop because of one bad meal. They do not develop because of one bad year. They develop slowly, quietly, over time. When you are young, your body hides the consequences extremely well. You can absolutely use exercise to compensate for a bad diet for a while. Your metabolism is flexible. Your insulin response is strong. Your recovery is fast. So you think you have checked that code. You tell yourself you will just burn it off. But what you're already doing is postponing the bill. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Exercise does not cancel chronic inflammation. Exercise does not undo years of repeated insulin spikes. Exercise does not protect you from constant exposure to ultra-processed food. Exercise does not erase oxidative stress at the cellular level. Exercise masks damage, and masking damage is not the same thing as preventing it. Think of it this way. You can keep the outside of a car spotless, washed, waxed, perfect paint. But if you put the wrong fuel in that engine every day, if you skip oil changes, if you constantly redline the motor, that engine eventually will fail. Not today, not tomorrow, but later. The human body works the same way. One of the biggest myths in fitness culture is the idea if you're lean and active, you must be healthy. That simply is not true. Some of the most metabolically unhealthy people look the most fit. They do not get sick early, they get sick later. This is why you see people who did everything right physically. They ran marathons, they lifted weights, they stayed lean for decades. And then suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, they're diagnosed with diabetes, heart disease, or cancer. And everyone says, oh my God, he was so fit. Yes, on the outside. What you do not see is what's happening internally for years. When you rely on exercise only to offset poor nutrition, several things are happening quietly. Your pancreas is working harder than it should. Your insulin is elevated more often than you realize. Your cells slowly become less responsive. Low-grade inflammation becomes your baseline. You do not feel it, you do not see it, but it is happening. And eventually, your body stops negotiating. This is especially important to understand if you are young, because youth creates a false sense of security. You think you're fine. You think you can eat whatever you want, and you can, for now. But what you're really doing is laying groundwork, and biology is patient. Cancer does not care that you had abs in your 30s. Diabetes does not care that you ran 5 miles a day in your 40s. Heart disease does not care that you stayed lean. Your cells remember what you fed them. Your metabolism remembers how often insulin spikes. Your body keeps receipts, even when you do not feel the consequences yet. This is why nutrition matters just as much as movement. Food is not just calories. Food is information. It tells your body what kind of environment it is living in. When you constantly signal sugar overload, chemical inputs, and ultra-processed ingredients, your body adapts, and not in ways you want long-term. Now, let me be clear about something. Exercise is incredibly important. Movement is non-negotiable. Strength matters. Muscle matters. Cardio matters. But exercise is not a license to eat garbage. Exercise is a support system, not damage control. The healthiest people long term are not the ones doing extreme workouts. They're the ones who eat real food, they limit ultra processed junk, they keep insulin low most of the time, they build muscle, they move consistently, and they do not rely on exercise to clean up dietary mistakes. They do not look for loopholes, they respect biology. If your strategy is, I will just burn it off, that is not health, that is debt. And just like financial debt, you can ignore it while things look fine until they're not. Eventually, the interest comes due. The real goal is not just looking good today. The goal is being metabolically healthy decades from now, still having energy in your 60s, still having mobility in your 70s, still having a functioning pancreas, heart, and brain. That does not come from compensating for bad inputs. It comes from alignment. Aligning nutrition with movement, aligning effort with recovery, aligning how you eat with how the human body actually works. So yes, you can look great on the outside while quietly setting yourself up for problems on the inside. Or you can look good and build long-term health by eating real food, by minimizing processed junk, and by using exercise the way it was meant to be used. Not as an excuse, but as reinforcement. But there is another layer to this that most people never look at: blood work. Not how you look, not how you feel, but what your markers are doing quietly in the background. People can look lean and athletic while their fasting insulin is elevated. They can look fit while triglycerides creep up year after year. They can perform well while inflammation markers slowly rise. Nothing feels wrong until suddenly something is. This is why relying on appearance is misleading. Your body can compensate for a long time, but compensation is not health. It is borrowed time. This is also why age changes the equation. In your 20s and 30s, your margin for error is large. In your 40s, it starts to shrink. In your 50s and beyond, mistakes compound faster. This is not pessimism. This is biology. This is where diet quality becomes non-negotiable. Not perfect, but intentional. Real food most of the time. Protein that supports muscle. Fats that do not inflame. Carbohydrates that are not constant or refined. Combined with movement that builds and preserves strength. Exercise should reinforce good inputs, not act as a cleanup for bad ones. When those pieces work together, the body stays resilient longer, for decades. That is what real health looks like. It is quiet. It is boring. It does not show up as abs on social media, but it shows up decades later as independence, energy, and function. If this made you rethink the idea that looking fit automatically means being healthy, hit that like button. If you want more straight talk about health, metabolism, and long-term wellness, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next video.